My classic Mustang, this beauty I've poured time and money into, got vandalized. And get this, the homeowners association tried to pin the blame on me. Their reasoning? Because I'm a federal agent. The irony? The only person who ended up getting removed from the situation was the one who did it. In handcuffs. Let me rewind a bit and tell you how it all started. Before I get into the nitty-gritty, drop a comment and let me know where you're tuning in from today. There's this sound metal makes when it's been cut way too deep. It's not a scream, not exactly. It's this low, groaning terror, like the bones of the car waking up and realizing they've been violated. And that's the sound that hit me the moment I stepped outside. The air was still, no birds chirping yet, just that quiet hush before the sun decides if it's going to be a scorcher or not. And then I saw it. My 1967 Mustang Fastback, parked right where I'd left it the night before. Only now, it looked like it had been dragged through a war zone. The hood had this thick, red spray paint job, SCUM plastered across it from fender to door handle. The letters were tight, the spacing uneven, and there were these deliberate smudges. The side was even worse, deep, deliberate grooves. SCUM etched into the paint like someone had slowly dragged a blade across it. This wasn't just some random act of anger, some teenage tantrum. This was a message. And it was meant for me. The kind of message I used to decipher for a living, back when my badge said FBI and my job was reading the difference between impulse and intent. Mike? Emily's voice cut through the fog behind me. She stepped outside in her robe, blinking in the early light. Oh my God, she breathed. Who would do this? But I didn't answer. My brain was already in that zone. I crouched next to the front wheel, scanning everything. The spray patterns, the overspray, the direction of the strokes. They used controlled bursts, sprayed side to side, didn't hit the windows, didn't tag the windshield. That told me two things: they didn't want to be seen, and they didn't want to completely trash the car, just enough to get their point across. Just enough to twist the knife. Dad? Benji. He stepped out in slippers and his frat hoodie, the same gray one with the red stripe he'd worn practically non-stop since college started, slightly frayed at the drawstrings. He stopped halfway down the steps, eyes landing on the Mustang, then flicking to me. And then, "Whoa," he said. "That's messed up." No shock. No questions. No "what the hell happened?" Or "are you okay?" Just whoa. He took a sip from his protein shaker and leaned against the porch railing. I clocked it, stored it. Not just what he said, but what he didn't say. Emily moved closer to the car, hands trembling. "Do you think it was someone from the HOA? That creepy kid Karen always has following her?" "Maybe," I said flatly, standing back up. "Maybe not." I didn't add what I was really thinking, that this felt too personal, too surgical. The hood was keyed in long, even strokes. They knew the paint job was custom, knew how deep to cut to ruin the clear coat but not warp the body. It was someone who understood value and revenge. And then I saw it, dangling from the driver's side mirror, half caught in the hinge, a thread of red stitching, cotton blend, athletic hoodie material. I pinched it off, studied it. My brain instantly pulled up the match, Benji's exact hoodie. Same make, same stitch pattern. I didn't react. Not yet. Because when you're profiling someone, you don't show them your hand. You let them keep talking. Let them fill the silence. That's when the knock came. 3 short raps, 1 breath pause, 1 slow follow-through. Karen. HOA president, neighborhood tyrant, and apparently the first responder to vehicular hate crimes. She didn't bother with a greeting. "Mr. Trent," she said with mock concern. "We received an anonymous report about a potential compliance violation. I came to see if everything was all right." Emily blinked. "You're citing us?" "We were vandalized." Karen offered a sympathetic smile, the kind that makes you want to check for fangs. "Unfortunately, the appearance of the vehicle in its current state violates several community guidelines. It could be seen as threatening, inflammatory, even hostile." She handed me a violation slip. "Fine, $450. Reason, visual disruption. Code 8B. due in 72 hours. I suggest you move the vehicle as soon as possible, she added, before the neighbors get concerned. You mean before it ruins their lawn staring sessions? I asked. For you, a free like is easy. But for me, it is the greatest support and encouragement. For this video, can you give me 1 like and 1 subscription? Thank you very much. Karen gave me a nod that said, "We'll be watching you," and turned on her heel. Benji was back inside before she even left the driveway. Emily put a hand on my shoulder. "What are you thinking?" I stared at the hood one more time, thinking about the scar my brother accidentally left under the driver's side emblem, the one we always joked about never fixing. It was gone now, buried under the word SCUM. I took a slow breath. I'm thinking someone just picked a fight they're not ready for. If you'd asked me that morning who I thought did it, Karen would have been at the top of the list. Maybe Ethan, the overly aggressive long guy. Maybe a neighbor with too much time and a spray can. But the real answer? He was already inside my house, drinking coffee, pretending this was just another Monday. The Mustang roared to life like it had something left to prove. As dusk painted the sky with golden light, reflecting off the chrome of the engine, my brother gripped the wheel like it was the last anchor tethering him to this planet. Because, in a way, it was. We'd just finished the rebuild, 2 years of busted knuckles, junkyard haggling, and late nights that always ended with him coughing into a rag behind my back. He wasn't supposed to drive. His doctor had made that crystal clear. But cancer doesn't own you until you stop driving. That was his rule. He eased the Mustang down the street, slow and reverent, like he was taking a victory lap around everything that had tried to kill him. The car didn't hiccup once. He made it to the stop sign and back. When he parked, he cut the engine and said, "If anything happens to me, don't sell her. Don't junk her. And don't ever let her sit still too long. She was built to move." That was 5 years ago. Now, I was standing in front of her again. Except this time, she wasn't moving. She was bleeding. Spray paint still flaked in the wind, scum across the side, deep enough to catch the sunlight. This wasn't chaos. It was choreography. Whoever did this, they knew restraint. The rear-view mirror was untouched, tires uncut, side mirrors clean, windows intact. They didn't want to destroy the car, they wanted to mark it, to send a message. And I'd spent 20 years reading messages just like this. Emily peeked through the screen door. "You've been out here 2 hours. Just thinking? You're profiling again." "No, she stepped closer. "I know what it looks like when you're trying not to profile." That's what scared her, not the crime itself. The fact that I was becoming that version of myself again, the one who never let anyone in until the case was closed. And this wasn't just a case. This was personal. I went inside and locked myself in my office. Loaded the security cam footage. Timestamped, Lores, but it told a story. The figure was lean, agile, hoodie drawn tight. They moved with confidence, tactical speed, no wasted movement. I played it at half speed, traced the shoulder roll, the center of gravity, the footwork. Then I saw the shoes, Nike collaboration, tactical variant, white heel stripe, custom drop, limited run, size 12. I knew because I bought them for Benji. He came downstairs around 11 p.m., yawning, hoodie on, same deadpan calm he wore like armor. Still running the footage, looking for angles, he leaned on the wall, casual. "Looks like Ethan." I didn't flinch. "What makes you say that?" "Build matches. He's been acting kind of off. You see him recently?" Benji blinked. "Yeah, yesterday morning." I nodded slowly. "Before class?" Upbeat. "Yeah." That pause. Subtle, measured. He recovered well, but I saw the glitch in his rhythm. Profilers don't miss cadence. Later that night, I went to the garage, pulled out Benji's old hoodie, the same one I saw on the figure. Red threading, frayed drawstring. I ran my hand through the pocket and felt it. A crumpled receipt, gas station, spray paint, gum, protein bar. 17 miles away, just outside our town's jurisdiction. He never mentioned leaving the house that night. I didn't say anything, just slipped it into my desk drawer and closed it softly. Emily found me an hour later, sitting in the dark. She held something behind her back. "I didn't want to worry you," she said. "What is it?" She handed me a plain white envelope. No handwriting, no stamp, no return address. Typed on thick cardstock, "We protect what you abuse. Leave, or it gets worse." I read it twice. "Where'd you find this?" "Under the doormat. I saw it this morning. But after what happened with the car, I didn't want to scare Benji. Or me." She hesitated. "You scare me more when you get quiet like this." That landed. The next morning, I tried again. Subtle. "Hey, Benji," I called while he poured cereal. "You ever wear those Nike collabs I got you?" He didn't look up. Too clean to mess up. I watched him closely. "You still have them?" "Yeah," he said, "in the closet." I nodded. "Good. You know how rare those are." He gave a quick shrug and kept eating. But I caught it. The breath hitch. The micro-expression. Not guilt, calculation. He was already managing the fallout. I waited until he left, then went up to his room. The shoes were in the closet, still dusty, but something was off. I flipped one over. The tag had been peeled halfway off, like someone tried to hide the production number. Inside the tongue, another receipt. This one older, spray paint again. Different location, same zip code. I'd missed the pattern. This wasn't the first message. The thing about profiling is, it's not just about finding what's there. It's about noticing what should be there but isn't. Ethan was still on my list. Karen too. But Benji. He wasn't giving off red flags. He was giving off silence. And silence in my line of work is a scream waiting to happen. The second time I heard the voice, it wasn't on camera. It was standing in my driveway, live, in khakis and a pale yellow polo. "Mr. Trent," Karen said, all sugar and contempt. "We need to talk again." Behind her, 3 other board members flanked her like backup singers on a bad talk show, all squinting at me like I was a pest infestation they'd been authorized to remove. And then there was Ethan, standing behind them, hands folded. A polite smile, the same one I'd seen in bureau interviews. The "I'm not dangerous, just helpful" smile. The kind you learn in prep school and interrogation rooms. I didn't invite them onto my property. They came anyway. I didn't speak first, because when you're outnumbered, the first person to talk loses the tempo. Karen took a breath and dropped the act like it was too heavy to carry that day. "We've received additional complaints," she said, her voice crisp. "About your vehicle, your surveillance, and your behavior." "You mean the vehicle that was vandalized, which is still visible and therefore still in violation, because it's part of a criminal investigation." "Because it's disruptive," she corrected. "Visually, socially, psychologically. Some would say." She didn't answer. Ethan took a step forward, his age around 22. "No offense, sir, but a few of the other residents have expressed concern about the way you're handling this." "Concern?" My jaw tightened. "My mood? You're scaring people?" Karen said, real quiet now. "Neighbors have asked if you're stable." That one hit like a shove in the back. Emily stepped outside right then, barefoot and furious. "He's scaring people?" she snapped. "You people barged onto our property, uninvited. You're the ones causing fear." Karen tilted her head, smile back in place. "Mrs. Trent, I understand this has been difficult." "No, you don't," Emily snapped. "You have no idea what difficult looks like." Karen held up a manila envelope, like a sheriff serving a warrant. "This is a petition. The board has voted to suspend your access to HOA amenities and services, trash pickup, security patrols, even landscaping, until your property is brought into full compliance." Emily froze. "You're cutting off our trash pickup? Effective immediately. And you think we're the problem?" Ethan cleared his throat. "It's temporary. The board just wants," I interrupted, "has no legal authority to enforce any of that." Karen blinked. "Excuse me? You operate under a template charter from 1993. I know because I wrote one of the original drafts. Half your bylaws are outdated, and the other half are unenforceable unless codified by city zoning. Which they aren't, I said sharply, stepping off the porch. Karen tried to hold her ground, but she wasn't ready for pushback. Ethan looked down and adjusted his sleeve, a nervous tell I'd seen in suspects under pressure. Emily folded her arms and said, "Is that all?" Karen paused. "We'll be back with formal citations and, if necessary, legal action." She turned on her heel and walked off like she hadn't just dropped a tactical nuke in our front yard. Ethan lingered, half a second longer than he should have, and said something he shouldn't have. "We didn't mean for it to go this far." My ears sharpened. "We? Not the board? Not Karen? We? What do you mean?" I asked, my age being 40. He blinked. "I mean, I didn't think the car thing would cause so much fallout." I smiled. Polite. Flat. "You have a good day, Ethan." He walked away fast. Later that night, I played the footage again. The garage cam, slow motion. Right when the figure finishes spraying, there's a whisper on the audio, "That's enough." Same cadence, same vocal register. Now, hearing it live, I was sure, Ethan. But it wasn't a confident command. It was like someone following instructions. I called Ray. "You ever hear a suspect parrot someone else's orders?" I asked. Ray laughed. "All the time. It's what makes followers dangerous. They borrow conviction." "I need a trace on Ethan Langley." "Run the profile." "Still building it, but something's off. He's too polished." "You thinking cult stuff, or hazing?" "Somewhere in between." By the next morning, Karen had posted a printed memo on our mailbox, "Property under active investigation. Non-compliant zone." She'd gone full propaganda. Emily tore it down and ripped it in half. I caught Benji, age 20, watching us from inside. Expression blank, unreadable. Inside, I found something worse. The HOA group forum had screenshots from our security cam footage, posted by an anonymous source. Slightly blurred, just enough to hide a figure. The caption, "Creating fear to justify control." Sound familiar? They were trying to turn the neighbors against me, paint me as unstable, paranoid, dangerous. Classic smear tactic. And it worked. 3 houses down, an older couple pulled their kid off the sidewalk when I came outside. Across the street, our next-door neighbor closed their blinds when I looked over. The war had gone public, and the target was no longer just my car. It was me. So I made a decision. No more subtle. I set up motion detectors under the garden beds, rerouted the exterior floodlights to my laptop, and installed 2 mini mics in the mailbox and porch planter. You want to start a war? Fine. But don't be surprised when the guy you thought was asleep wakes up and starts building a perimeter. For you, a free like is easy. But for me, it is the greatest support and encouragement. For this video, can you give me 1 like and 1 subscription? Thank you very much. Karen thought HOA power meant votes and fines. Ethan thought playing nice meant safety. But me? I wasn't playing anymore. I was building a case. And I just started collecting names. I didn't go to Ray because I needed answers. I went to Ray because I needed a firewall between the truth and what I was afraid to admit. The HOA had declared war. Karen was front and center, Ethan's smile was too perfect, and someone was pulling the strings from deeper in the shadows. So I called the only person I knew who could untangle a spiderweb without snapping the strands. Ray didn't pick up. He opened his front door with a potato chip halfway to his mouth and a keyboard under his arm. "Took you long enough," he said. "I've already cleared an entire terabyte of HOA drama. You got something good?" I handed him the flash drive. "I think so." He grinned and motioned me inside like we were about to plan a heist. Ray's office, he called it the bunker, looked like a war room built by a gamer with a god complex, 6 monitors, 2 servers, a fridge full of energy drinks and carrot sticks. Don't ask. He had this rule, only break laws if your blood sugar is stable. He slammed the drive into his tower like it owed him money. HOA's been escalating. Anonymous complaint posts, coordinated messaging, targeted fines. And you think it's Karen? I did, but now I think she's just the mouthpiece. Who's the real engine? That's why I'm here. He cracked the folders in under 5 minutes. He clicked, mumbled, chewed on a carrot, scrolled, squinted. Found it, he muttered. I walked over. He pulled up a business registration, Civic Core Residential Compliance. Fake HOA offshoot, Ray said. Filed as a safety initiative. Smells like a shell corporation. Karen? Her name's nowhere near the registration, but get this. He tapped the mouse twice. Guess who uploaded the founding documents? I leaned closer. Ethan Langley? I stared. He did this from his campus IP, Ray added, then bounced it through a VPN, but he got lazy. IP matches HOA portal login. Same node was used to upload the security cam screenshots of your house to the neighborhood forum. So he's the anonymous neighbor stirring the pot. Ray nodded. And using his mommy's clipboard army to enforce it. I didn't respond. I was stuck on the footage. The whisper, that's enough. It was him. Ethan wasn't just helping, he was directing traffic. Then Ray said something that made my stomach clench. Check this. He pulled open another folder. Phase 3 assets. Locked. Encrypted. You want me in? Ray cracked his knuckles. Give me 17 minutes and a banana. He vanished into the code like a hacker monk entering a trance. I paced. My hands were shaking, and I wasn't sure why. It wasn't Ethan, it was the feeling that Ethan was never the end of the thread. Ray clicked. Folder opened. Photos? Dozens of them. Zoomed-in surveillance shots of houses, driveways, family routines, notes on trash schedules, mail patterns, even garage door passcodes. One file was labeled Trend Alpha. I opened it. Inside, photos of my house, different angles, one from the inside taken through the blinds, my garage at nighttime, and me standing there bent over the Mustang, frozen, taken from behind me, from inside the house. Ray whistled low. Mike. I couldn't speak. Dude, this wasn't taken through a window. That shot had to be from inside. I backed up, my breath stalled in my throat. Ray, who uploaded this? He checked the metadata. Uploader tag, BTRNT, 0. Silence. Isn't that? I didn't answer. I knew the tag. It was Benji's old gaming handle. I sat down because standing was suddenly impossible. Ray opened another file. Audio, low quality. Timestamps match the Mustang attack. He boosted it. Benji's voice, he won't stop until he figures it out, so we have to move. Ray looked at me. Mike, that's inside your house. That's your kitchen. I heard the fridge beep in the background. I remembered that sound. I heard it just 3 nights ago when I came downstairs, and Benji had just closed the fridge and said, just getting water. Now I realized he hadn't been alone. Ray closed the file gently. You okay? No. You want me to keep going? I stood slowly. Number 1, I want you to lock it down. Meaning encrypt everything. Triple layer. Air gap the drive. I need this clean when I present it to the feds. No, I turned toward the door. My son. Ethan built the system, Karen enforced it. But the architect, the one feeding the blueprints, was closer than I ever imagined. And if I was right, the next move wouldn't be tactical. It would be personal. I didn't sleep, didn't blink, didn't breathe right, just sat in the dark listening to the hum of our fridge and the echo of my son's voice over and over, but he won't stop until he figures it out. He wasn't panicked. He wasn't scared. He was certain. He knew exactly who I was and chose to do it anyway. That's what kept me awake. Not the crime, the calculation. Ray showed up at sunrise, dressed like a high school physics teacher on summer break, cargo shorts, tactical hoodie, sunglasses over headphones. He handed me a pizza box like we were doing some sketchy lunch deal behind a gym. Inside, modified GoPro, thermal overlay, flash drive with layered backups, burner phone preloaded with call scraping and geo-pings. Standard surveillance starter pack, he said, deadpan. Also works for catching cheating spouses and HOA presidents on power trips. You sure it's undetectable? Sleeper, you're invisible. I just nodded. I rigged everything that afternoon. Motion sensors in the garage, mic behind the mailbox panel, minicam perched inside a fake vent in the bathroom. No one would notice, but if someone so much as breathed suspiciously near my house again, I'd hear it in surround sound. I baited the hook, sent a single message in the HOA group chat, public thread visible to all, thinking of doing a neighborhood audit. Might be good to review security LLC filings and who owns what. Just transparency. No mention of Ethan. Didn't need to. By 7 p.m., I saw him pass by our house. Once. Then again. Third time, hoodie up, hands in his pockets despite the heat. Subtle like a brick through a windshield. When he finally left something under the mailbox, I didn't move. Didn't stop him. Just waited. After he vanished around the corner, I opened the envelope. Plain white. Inside one sentence, back off. You're not the only one with reach. Typed clean, unsmudged. Ray traced the watermark to a campus print lab, one with login logs. Only 2 students had used that machine in the past 24 hours. Ethan was one of them. I confronted him just after dusk behind the clubhouse, where the HOA drones like to gossip after meetings. No audience, just the 2 of us under a dying porch light. You dropped something in my mailbox. He froze. What? That little threat? You used a paper stock that watermarks to your dorm printer. I don't know what you're talking about. I think you do. He looked nervous now, face flushing, breath shallow. I stepped in. Tell me what Benji's role was. His eyes flicked sideways. Say it out loud, I said. Or I bring this to campus security and the board. You have 1 shot. He cracked. I didn't think he'd go that far, Ethan said. It was just supposed to be a prank. Initiation stuff. You mean the paint? Ethan hesitated. I leaned in. You mean die pig on the hood? SCUM carved into history? I swear, I thought it would stop at the tagging. And Benji? He had the codes. He knew your camera's blind spots. He planned it. That's when I saw it. Guilt, yes, but also fear. Not of me. Of Benji. I left him there. No cuffs, no threats. Because Ethan wasn't the threat anymore. He was a pawn, a scared, entitled kid who got in over his head. The night behind this was mine. Back home, Emily stood in the hallway when I walked in. Was that Ethan? Yes. She saw the rage behind my calm and didn't speak. I walked past her into the kitchen, then the garage, sat in silence, waited. Benji came in at 10:58 p.m., hoodie on, backpack slung, paint on his left cuff, tiny smudge, but enough. He didn't notice me. Went to the garage. I followed. He was kneeling by the front bumper, gloved, cleaning rag in hand, frozen when he saw me. Camera light above the door clicked on. Tiny red glow catching both of us. He dropped the rag, didn't speak. You know what that is? I asked, pointing. He nodded once. You know how many people just incriminated you before you ever opened your mouth? Still nothing. Why? He looked up slowly, eyes dark. I didn't think it would matter. My throat burned. You didn't think it would? You care more about that car than you care about me? The words hit harder than the vandalism. I stepped back. You think this is about a car? He stood. No. I think it's about control. About always watching. About expecting everyone to follow your rules or fall in line. I didn't answer, because he wasn't completely wrong, and that scared me more than anything. You keyed a war memorial. You made it one, he snapped. You worshipped that thing more than you ever listened. I shook my head. This wasn't rebellion. This was calculated. Good, he said. Then maybe you finally saw it coming. He turned to walk past me. I blocked him. You involved Ethan. You manipulated a whole HOA. Why? He looked up, cold. I didn't manipulate them. And then he said it, they wanted someone to lead. I just gave them a target. He didn't run. He didn't apologize. He confessed with pride. But the worst part? This wasn't over. Because while Benji stood there admitting everything, my motion sensor lit up again. Someone else was outside, watching both of us. And this time, they weren't just filming. They were recording for revenge. There's a moment between pulling a trigger and the sound it makes. That vacuum of silence. That space where everything hangs weightless, waiting to break. That's what it felt like, watching the video go live. 1 second, I was staring at Ray's encrypted vault. The next, it was gone. Streamed, uploaded, clipped, captioned, cop's son leads HOA attack. FBI dad covers it up. And just like that, the whole neighborhood had a front row seat to my family's implosion. Ray called exactly 4 seconds later. They accessed the backup, he said. Not from your house. From off-site. Who? IP spoofed through a school network. You want to guess which one? I didn't have to. Benji, or someone he gave access to. But yeah, it wasn't an accident. I just stood there, phone in one hand, GoPro feed paused mid-confession, Benji's face frozen. They wanted someone to lead. I just gave them a target. And he had me. Emily burst into the room a minute later, her phone clutched and whined. Uckles. You've seen it? Yes. Why is it out there? I didn't answer because I didn't know if it was revenge or a message. Maybe both. Maybe this was Benji's final thesis. The HOA board posted a statement an hour later. In light of recent developments, we voted to revoke all rights and privileges associated with 3417 Maple Hollow Lane, effective immediately. This includes security, trash service, and event access. We do not tolerate intimidation or extremism in our community. The comments below were worse. That whole family's unhinged. He raised a terrorist. We told you they were watching us. Karen didn't post anything. She didn't need to. She'd already won the crowd. Emily sat in the kitchen like a statue, phone in one hand, unread messages pouring in. I got 3 emails from work, she said. 1 from HR. They want to review my social affiliations. I looked down, didn't answer. Are you going to say something? She snapped. What do you want me to say? That you didn't know? That you didn't see it coming? I didn't. Then what good is all your profiling, Michael? What's the point of being the smartest guy in the room if you can't even see your own kid coming? That broke something in me. I stood up, walked into the garage, and slammed the laptop shut so hard the camera feed glitched. I paced, breathed, didn't scream, didn't cry, just felt hollow, like a safe someone had cracked open and found nothing inside. Emily came out 5 minutes later. Her voice was smaller. He's still our son. I know. I don't know what to do. Neither did I because the profiler in me wanted to chart the behavior map, the lie, followed the pattern. But the father couldn't stop hearing his kid's voice say, you care more about that car than me. I was still there, slumped in a lawn chair with a cold coffee and the lights off, when the knock came. Sheriff's deputy, neutral face, sympathy behind the badge. Mr. Trent, I need to notify you of a formal community conduct complaint. Allegations of intimidation, public surveillance, and emotional distress filed by multiple residents. Filed by who? He looked down, hesitated, didn't answer. He handed me the paperwork, stapled to the back a screenshot of my HOA message. The one that said, thinking of doing a neighborhood audit, now red circled and captioned implied threat, cyber stalking. Emily read it behind me. This isn't just fallout, she whispered. No, this is a purge. Ray texted me 5 minutes later, it's not just HOA footage. Someone's been accessing city traffic cams, private ring feeds. This isn't a prank anymore. You're not the only one watching. For you, a free like is easy. But for me, it is the greatest support and encouragement. For this video, can you give me 1 like and 1 subscription? Thank you very much. I stood up, walked to my old duffel in the garage, the one with the badge, the burner IDs, and the folder labeled Langley Dorm Connections. Emily saw me unzip it. What are you doing? Building a firewall. What does that mean? I'm going to find out how deep this goes. And if Benji's still in it. I paused. Then I pull him out. Or I pull it down around him. She stepped back. You sound like a Fed again. I am a father first. Are you? I stopped cold. She didn't cry. Just stood there, waiting for me to say something real. I didn't, because I couldn't, because every time I opened my mouth, I heard Benji's voice. You always cared more about the car than us. I built my life on knowing when people were lying. But this wasn't about a lie. This was about a fracture. One I didn't see forming. One that didn't just break the house. It broke the mirror. And I didn't know if I could stand to see what was still staring back. There's a line every profiler draws. It's not made of rules or ethics or case law. It's personal. And when someone crosses it, you either walk away, or you burn everything to the ground to drag them back over it. That's what I thought about the whole way to the dorm. I didn't call ahead, didn't warn him, didn't even bring my phone, because this wasn't about control. It was about truth. And truth doesn't wait for appointments. Room 3C. His door was slightly cracked, like it knew what was coming. I knocked once, hard, waited. I heard movement, a soft thump, then silence, then Benji's voice. You don't have to do this. Open the door, I said. Click. He let me in. The room was clinically clean. Too clean. Like someone erased all evidence of being human. No posters, no open books. Just a laptop, a duffel bag, and a whiteboard full of times and tags. I scanned it in seconds, class schedules, faculty names, board member initials, and in the corner, in small letters, Phase 4 Live Push. I turned to him. You tracking people? He looked tired, pale. I was trying to undo it. Undo what? This. He pointed to the whiteboard. The system. I didn't sit, didn't blink, just said, you were the system. No. He snapped. I was the delivery method. I didn't write the virus. You executed it. He dropped onto the edge of his bed. Because I was angry. You made me feel like I never had a voice. Like the only way to get your attention was to throw a grenade into your perfect world. My hands curled. And this was your solution? He didn't respond. So I stepped closer. Who's Mason? His head snapped up. The silence said everything. Ray flagged the name an hour before. I left Mason's alias linked to admin rights on HOA forums, university internet exploits, local ISP intercepts. Not just a hacker, an ideologue, a manipulator. He recruited you, I said. He showed me what I already knew, which was that systems can't be fixed from within. You sound like a manifesto. Benji looked down. Maybe I started to believe one. There was a knock at the door. 3 sharp taps. We both froze. Benji stood. I didn't invite anyone. You didn't have to. I stepped forward, blocking the door, unlocked it slowly, opened it 2 inches. And there he was. Mason, skinny, calm, wearing a campus security polo and holding a duffel bag labeled AV Department. His smile was the kind you punch off a face. Oh, he said, wasn't expecting a family reunion. He tried to step back. I opened the door fully. Come in. Benji moved like he was going to stop me, then sat down instead. Mason stepped in, too smooth. I was just dropping off a rig, he said, holding up the bag. Benji wanted to run some diagnostics. Is that what we're calling it? I asked. He laughed. Careful, agent. You don't want to sound paranoid. I closed the door behind him. Let me guess, I said. You posted the edits. Mason shrugged. Some of them. The surveillance? I just opened the door. Your boy did the heavy lifting. Benji looked away. Mason smiled wider. You raised a machine, Michael. He just needed someone to plug him in. I stepped close, too close. He didn't flinch. You think this is about revolution? I said. It's not. It's about consequences. And you're standing in the middle of one. He leaned in, dropped his voice. You think this is the finale? This was the pilot. The HOA just beta testing. The real show's coming next month. Live streamed, Geo-boosted, viral ready. Your son's the prototype. Benji stood. I'm not doing it. Mason didn't look back. You already did. Michael moved fast, grabbed a duffel, tossed it on the bed, unzipped it. Cables, lenses, a laptop already logged in, streaming dashboard, multiple cams labeled by location, HOA park, dorm commons, courthouse. Mason, I said, you're done. He stepped forward, almost mocking. You going to cuff me, Agent Dad? No. I pulled out my phone, the backup Ray gave me. Clicked the screen. Live recording uploaded to 3 mirrors. Mason stopped smiling. That's right, I said. I profiled you the second I saw your posts. You want a stage? Now you've got one. Benji turned. You were recording? Not you, I said, him. Mason moved for the door. Benji blocked it. Sit down, he said. Mason stared. You going to stop me? Benji stepped forward. Yeah. They stared at each other. Then Mason smiled again. But it was smaller. I knew you had it in you, he said. But now you'll never wash it off. Then he left. Benji dropped into the chair, put his face in his hands. I'm sorry. I know, I said, but sorry doesn't erase fallout. We shut Mason down, but he wasn't alone, because this wasn't just about power. It was about platforms. And someone else was still broadcasting. And this time, they weren't coming for the car. They were coming for the badge. I used to break cartel lieutenants by charting their routines. Map when they smoked, when they cracked jokes, when they stopped blinking during a question. Everything has a pattern, and once you see it, you don't need force. Just the right moment to pull the thread. That's how I hunted Mason. Not with a gun, with time, with silence, with a chessboard made of Wi-Fi pings, metadata leaks, and Ray's eco-friendly hacking. Ray and I created the illusion of vulnerability, built a fake watchdog site using deep-faked footage of me arguing with Karen, seeded it with leaked surveillance clips and blurred whistleblower testimonies. We called it Neighbor Watch Zero, posted from 5 burner accounts. Designed a countdown clock labeled Live HOA Expose, 72 hours. It blew up within 36. We knew Mason was watching because the minute Ray cross-posted it on an encrypted HOA thread. The site got 800 hits in an hour. And then the bite, an email from Frank Spear at cast.net, posing as an independent journalist seeking an exclusive sit-down with a whistleblower. IP matched Mason's dorm block. Ray grinned. You ready? I said nothing, because when the lion's already got the trap set, he doesn't roar. He waits. We booked the HOA clubhouse, unlisted, after hours. Ray deployed his eyes, 3 hidden cams, perimeter mics, thermal overlay. Sylvia, my old partner from Counterintel, parked 2 cars down in a gray sedan with 2 field agents in a sealed warrant. She'd seen the footage of Benji, didn't ask questions, just said, you call the play. We'll run it. Mason showed up like he was late to a podcast panel. Hoodie, dark glasses, fake lanyard. He didn't knock, just walked in like he owned it. He started setting up his mic before he said a word. Ray patched into his camera feed remotely. I stood just off frame, watching, breathing, controlling the shake in my hands. Mason hit record and started his monologue. What you're about to see is a takedown of American conformity. An HOA becomes a microcosm of surveillance, fear, and authoritarian family structures. And at the center. He paused, looked dead into the lens. A federal agent. At the 7-minute mark, Mason tried to cue up his montage. It didn't play. Instead, static, glitch, then footage. His footage. Uncut, unmasked. Clips of Mason logging into HOA portals using admin override credentials. Audio of him laughing in a Discord call. The HOA is like training wheels for civil collapse. They're dying to be led. Footage of him coaching Ethan on how to stage a fake protest video. A screen cap of the Ring Cam portal interface with his IP at the top. Ray loaded it all and live-streamed it to 4 social platforms and Sylvia's tablet in the back of the room. Mason went pale. Cut it, he muttered, trying to hit escape. Cut the feed. Can do, Ray said calmly through the speakers. Mason turned. I stepped into frame. You wanted a spotlight, I said, smiling. He lunged for the camera. 2 federal agents stepped through the door before he could blink. Sylvia held the warrant. Derek Mason, you're under arrest for digital impersonation, communications fraud, unauthorized surveillance, conspiracy to incite unrest. You can't arrest ideas. He snapped. No, I said, but we can indict the people dumb enough to think they're above consequence. They cuffed him, escorted him past the cameras. He spat something about viral injustice in the new wave. But it didn't matter. He wasn't the point anymore. Ray called 10 minutes later. Total stream views just crossed 30,000. Karen's entire board resigned by text. HOA's having a panic meeting on Monday. And Mason's in holding. Ray paused. That's the thing. We dumped everything Mason had, but one folder, Omega. It wasn't his. Different syntax, different encrypt protocol. Malware number buried directory. I think he was answering to someone. I stood outside the clubhouse, watched the last police car pull away. The lights fading, the quiet returning. Benji was back home, painting over the word SCUM one brush stroke at a time, trying to make something whole again. And maybe, for the first time, so was I. I built a trap, caught the spider. But the web's still out there. And whoever wrote Omega, they weren't just watching, they were waiting. There's a moment right before a plane hits turbulence where everything feels too smooth. That's what this was. Too quiet, too calm, too ready to break. Ray's voice was hoarse when he called me. Mike. I unlocked Omega. No jokes, no banter, just gravity. He didn't say come now. He didn't have to. I drove barefoot. Didn't grab my badge. Didn't bring the burner. Just keys and instinct and that low, instinctual hum behind my ears. The one that says the air is about to change. When I got to Ray's basement, he didn't meet me at the door, didn't look up when I entered. He was already locked into the screen, lit like a surgeon mid-operation. Sit, he said, and read. The first file was labeled Operation Plowback. Primary asset, Trent, Michael. Retired. Status, closed containment field simulation. I blinked. Read it again. Ray kept typing behind me, but the room was silent except for the slow cracking in my chest. Second document, behavioral audit. Subject Trent displays advanced pattern recognition and counterintelligence routines but remains emotionally anchored to objects symbolizing brotherhood, military identity, and patriarchal legacy. Recommended point of destabilization, controlled violation of Mustang 1967 fastback. Projected reaction, elevated cortisol, public exposure, breakdown of paternal home front structure. I sat back, not in shock, in recognition. They hadn't guessed who I was. They had profiled me better than I had profiled myself. Ray broke the silence. They flagged you 18 months ago, he said. Kaiser submitted your retirement file as a candidate for closed-loop ops testing. Why? Because you're the blueprint. Next file, timeline. Every move, every escalation. HOA adjustment. Karen appointed via recommendation. Ethan Langley added to civil disruption test track. Benji monitored during campus conflict submission. Mustang flagged in phase 2 as optimal trigger. Vandal ops run. SCUM keyed. Message painted. Subject reaction, predictive aggression achieved. My breath locked up. And then the one line that finished me, subject B Trent approved for behavioral detonation. My son. Filed like a tactical variable, like he was never a person, just a detonator with my name engraved on it. I stood hard enough to jolt the desk. Ray didn't stop me. He opened the next file for me. It was a video. Karen, not crying, not hysterical, just composed, being interviewed, not interrogated. Interviewed? I thought. It was training, she said to the camera. They said it was for a national study. I never saw the whole plan. Just the part I was assigned. What was that? Asked the voice. Raise tension. Target a family. Leak complaints. Monitor reaction. Submit weekly. Did you know the subject? She hesitated. Michael Trent? Yeah, I mean, everyone did. I figured that was why we picked him. He holds tight. They said that was the point. Ray paused the video. I couldn't speak. He clicked again. Final document. Memo labeled Coordinator KY5R Division Vantage Private Contractor DSR/Alpa. And there he was. Kaiser. My mentor, my CO, the man who debriefed me after 10 overseas tours and 3 domestic leaks, now staring at the camera like a teacher giving a final lecture. Agent Trent represents the last ideal of clean federal containment. Sharp, loyal, methodical, and dangerously linear. The test: destabilize him through emotional interference. Monitored via suburban tension. Isolate variables. Measure degradation. He leaned forward. If he breaks, we know the model needs rewriting. If he doesn't. He smiled and shut the folder. Silence. I couldn't breathe. My knuckles were white against the desk edge. I finally looked at Ray. Why me? He didn't answer right away, and then, because you were never off the board. I walked to the corner of the basement, sat down on the floor. Not because I collapsed, because I needed the earth under me to remind me I still existed. Ray walked over, sat next to me. We still got them, Mike. Mason's going away. Karen's going to fold. The HOA's toast. I didn't look up. They were decoys, I said. They weren't pulling strings. Ray nodded. But we know who was. I stood again, wiped my palms on my jeans, looked around. Is there more? Ray handed me a final slip of paper. Printed in Courier. Next pilot. 90 days. Location, Tier 2 Midwest. Lead coordinator, Vantage. Subject family flagged, redacted. I folded it. Not to keep, to crush. What now? Ray asked. I turned and smiled. Tired, broken, but ready. Now we burn the blueprint. They mapped my life like a battlefield. They built my son into a weapon. They turned my family into a trial run. But now I had their names, their files, their next targets. And I wasn't a subject anymore. I was the countermeasure. I didn't go to the press. Didn't storm any gates. Didn't call in favors. I just sent a package. Plain. No return address. Inside, Karen's testimony, Mason's leaked video confessions, and a sticky note, handwritten, "You got your results. Now disappear." 2 days later, Vantage's site dropped offline. By week's end, the consulting arm dissolved. One of Ray's proxies flagged a memo, active investigation. Unauthorized psychological containment simulations. They didn't say Kaiser's name. Didn't have to. The whisper was enough. Everyone started backing away. And Kaiser? He ghosted. No activity, no signals, no trail, except one voicemail. Blocked number, audio warped, but I knew the voice. You passed, Trent. Like it was still a game. Benji never saw the full files. I showed him enough to make him understand he wasn't the villain, but he was a player. He asked, "So what does that make me?" And I said, "Human." He started showing up in the garage again. Not because I asked, because he wanted to. The first time, he just sanded a panel, didn't say a word. Second time, he brought a part. Mustang taillight, vintage 67. Held it up, smirked. I figure if I helped break it, I should help fix it. We didn't paint over the scratches. Left the hood just how it was. Dull in spots, streaky in others. Not because we couldn't restore it, because it didn't need to be perfect anymore. The hood still carried the scar, but that scar wasn't damage. It was proof we'd survived. Karen resigned via email. No press, no apology, just gone. The HOA disbanded a month later. The new company? They actually cared about weeds. Ethan faced consequences, probation, counseling, a mandated apology to Benji, face to face. No parents, no scripts, just 2 kids learning what guilt feels like. Benji didn't hug him, but he didn't hate him either, and that was enough. Mason pled out. under condition of full transparency, his forums, his scripts, his tactics. Ray archived them all and rewrote their endings. Everyone now leads to a dead page. With a single redirect line, this sandbox is closed. Try reality next time. Emily? She never needed the details. She saw it in my eyes the night I finally came back inside, shoulders lower, breath steady. She poured us tea, sat beside me, quiet, then asked, "Is it really over?" I didn't lie. "The experiment is." She looked at me for a long time, then smiled. "Not the kind you give a hero, the kind you give a partner. We're not the same," she said, "but we're still us." Final beat. The Mustang lives. So do we. Some nights, I sit on the porch, watching the curve of the road, waiting for nothing. The car's paint still dull, Benji's laughter sometimes echoing from the garage. The kind that isn't loud, but real. A scar doesn't mean you lost. It means you came back with a story. And this one? This one ends.